All right, we'll jump into it here. So I don't know if I'm going to call this anything different. I think we'll just call it an extension of the call up. I'll come up with something clever. I think eventually. I'll lean on you for any advice you have, Kyle. We can make this some sort of interesting title for it. But basically, we're going to go over some of your pitches, some of the at bats that I pulled from your season, mostly in Double A here. And just
Mhm.
kind of let you walk us through your mentality on the mound and maybe what you were thinking. You might remember some of these at bats pretty well. I mean, pitchers have a weird ability to recall everything, good and bad. Usually the bad probably resonates a little
Right.
bit more, but
Yeah.
these are mostly
Definitely.
good. And I want to just kind of play some of these, and we could just kind of talk through it. But
Okay.
this pitch right here
Mhm.
is my favorite because
Yeah.
this is the guy that we just talked about on the podcast.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he is impossible to strike out. It's Jonathan Aranda. Really tough to
Mhm.
strike out. I could have put the whole AB in here, but it was just a lot of battling.
Yeah.
You have a runner on second here. You have an open bag.
Mhm.
The rest of their lineup's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Are you going 3-2 here because you have the open bag and you're okay with walking him? Or did you just have that much confidence in that pitch right there?
Uh, I'd like to say it's both, but like it's because there was an open bag. Like that was kind of the scouting report, obviously, on him because he's really good. Um, you don't ever want to like give in and give him a pitch right over the plate on purpose. Like, you want to challenge him, but it's not something in that count with the open base that you really want to, mess around and just give him an easy one to hit. So, obviously I had confidence in that pitch and, I was just trying to throw a good one to where he would recognize it hopefully as a strike at first and then pull the trigger. But if not, not a big deal. First and second, one out, still one pitch away. So that was kind of the mindset there.
How difficult is it to locate it right there, right where I have this frozen? Because you if you miss, you either tug
Mm-hmm.
it and you hit them, which I mean, like
Right.
isn't the worst thing in the world, but
Yeah.
or you don't get on top of it enough, right, and it
Mm-hmm.
ends up hanging over the middle. Like that's a spot where if you miss, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
really bury it in there. I always call it like
Yeah.
back leg in the left-handed hitter, but that's
Right.
something I think we've seen with sliders a lot more that are late
Mm-hmm.
breaking. How effective do you feel like you can be with that back leg pitch there? And is that something that you are getting more comfortable with to be able to do that maybe when there's
Mm-hmm.
nobody on in a
Yeah.
32 count?
Yeah. I'm definitely more comfortable with that than I was like this whole season. That's kind of a big pitch that I went to, whether it was the curveball or there was a slider. Um, it's just that's just another like field pitch. Like you said, the margin of error, you either hit him or you leave it right in, especially to a lefty. That's their sweet spot. If you leave it up, just a little like down and in at the knees. Um, so it's really you just got to have a lot of conviction go in there, a lot of confidence in yourself and that pitch. But I definitely feel comfortable with that and doing that whenever any situation of the game.
Do you feel like your fastball, when it's got that life, and especially it's running away at times, but you said like, a lot of times you want to keep it pretty straight. But when it's running
Mm-hmm.
away from guys like that, now you're worrying about two different directions, right? And like
Right.
where I have it frozen right now, I mean, right now as a hitter, you probably still don't know, what it is. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
about to figure it out. And right now he's
Yeah.
probably thinking, fastball, right? And it
Yeah.
looks like it's going to be right about belt high
Mm-hmm.
and right here. But Jesus,
Yeah.
when you do it that way, when you stop it right at like the apex there
Yeah.
and then it dives off, it's like, dude.
It
Um,
is nuts. That's the stuff you see like on Pitching Ninja and everything on Twitter, where it's
yeah,
like
so that's why I asked you about
hitting a
that like
baseball.
riding life, like the
Yeah.
fastball with the riding life. Because if he's thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
up or at least
Yeah.
tailing away, now he's
Mm-hmm.
got it coming the other way. Like I know you said the fastball kind of varies on you. Is
Yeah.
against lefties, are you okay with having that arm side run a little bit? Because I feel like it might set that up better,
Yeah.
with this kind of pitch.
Yeah. I would say more so against lefties than righties having the arm side run. Not really. if I'm trying to go inside, I'd rather it be, get it out like I was talking about before, the extension, um, and stuff it in there. But if I'm just trying to go to the top of the zone where, I kind of lived with two strikes this year, um, it's fine if it's starting middle and then it kind of runs off
Mhm.
and catches the outer third of the top of the zone, against the lefty. And
Against righties. I'm sorry,
yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, that's what I was about to say too. Against righties, if I'm going up, it can have that movement too. It can have the arm side and ride, but not really if it's low. Then that's when it gets smacked.
Yeah, and that's the challenge there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you got a righty here. So on the slider side, because this is gonna be another slider, and this is a really good one. If
Mm-hmm.
it's the video I'm thinking of, uh, you can get away with a bit more, right? I mean, you don't have to be as precise with the slider against righties, right? I mean, that's one that
Right.
you want to hit your spot, but there's got to be at least a feeling, right, where if it's around the zone,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably going to play up better. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You kind of see that open space over there, where the left-hander would be hitting, and it's kind of like a comfort blanket over there. You don't really want to start it, too far inside to where it leaks over the plate, but you got that kind of comfort blanket over there to where, you're not really going to get hurt out there, especially right here, 2 outs, 1-2 count. If I go out there, yeah, that was kind of nasty. But like if he just lays off that, it's like, all right, 2-2 count, 2-2 count with 2 outs. I can make another big pitch here, probably honestly go back inside with the fastball, get him out over the plate looking at that pitch over there, and then go back in. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that was kind of the mindset there.
That's what I'm thinking, right? Because like if you're a right-handed hitter here, like, and you just saw 95 running in on your hands, like
Mm-hmm.
even if you think a slider's coming, like that's in your mind a little bit,
Yeah.
and now you've got this pitch that again out of your hand, you're still trying to figure out what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then it does that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that
remember this. I remember this pitch exactly.
I had a
I,
feeling. I
yeah.
had a feeling, and I mean, when you can do that to guys.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're trying to save for two strikes? Like, is that something because you don't want to? Do you not want to show them that early in the count? Does that matter? Like, what's your
Yeah.
approach there? Because that right there is like that's your probably your best pitch that you can give a righty, right? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
no one on earth is hitting that if you set it up properly. I
Right.
mean, it's going to take a really good hitter to read that and go the other
Mm-hmm.
way and sit
Yeah.
back on it, especially after you put 95 in on the hands. Uh, is that not a pitch you might not want to show early in the count, or does it not really matter? Are you kind of just mixing it up and going to it whenever?
Yeah. I mean, that exact pitch, kind of runs off the plate. You don't really want that early in the count, especially if you're trying to. It just depends on the situation. So if it's like 1-0 and you're trying to get a slider in there for a strike, that's obviously not what you want. Um, that's not what you want because you're probably not going to swing at it. But yeah, like you said, you set up the at bat for that pitch right there. So if you execute everything, you get to that 1-2 count, and you're like, all right, I've done everything in the first three pitches to where I can throw this one. So yeah, I'd say that was more definitely two strike one. But you don't want to throw any breaking balls where you don't have full conviction in it, or it's probably just gonna keep spinning and then go over the fence. So yeah.
Here's an 0-1 slider. This time out of the windup. And that's one that, that's a swing to me that is looking for a fastball, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's a
definitely.
swing. That's a dude that's looking for a heater. And,
Yeah.
it's just enough of that velo difference, just enough of that breakaway
Mm-hmm.
to get off from where he's at, and his barrel's already out of the zone by the time that pitch
Yeah.
crosses. How much are you looking to make that sweep versus that sharp, harder to differentiate pitch
Mhm.
until it's too late, right? Because you talk about like at first it was a cutter for you in high school that developed
Yeah.
into a slider. Do you manipulate that at all? Because like here, 0-1, and you're starting it a little bit more middle in, the target's middle. So this was a
Mhm.
pitch where I think you were kind of saying, I think this guy's game planning for a fastball, and I'm going to give him like a firm slider that just bites away that he won't
Yeah.
pick up till it's late. Do you ever try to manipulate it to more of a sweeper when you're way ahead to a righty, or is this kind of the where you're always trying to be with your slider?
Yeah, I think that I try to manipulate it sometimes. This is the ideal movement for me, especially since I have a curveball that has more of a bigger action and more depth. So this is kind of what I'm looking for with the slider, but um, I can also try to manipulate it to where I can make it break bigger, so kind of start more at the hitter to where he thinks he's going to get this movement to where it's going to be a ball in the inner half, but I can manipulate it, kind of get more on the side to where it kind of has more horizontal. Yeah, just has a bigger sweep and it'll end up in the zone at the knees, and they're kind of just spin at it.
Right here is like the oh shit range. Like right about here, he's about to launch. The ball's
Hmm.
about to start breaking and not be a fastball.
Yeah.
And there you go. How much goes into? I've heard things about. Yeah, again, this wasn't something I really saw much in high school. And we saw some good sliders. A guy that I don't know if you
Hmm.
faced him, Evan McKendry, faced him a million times in high school, and he had a
Hmm.
good breaking ball. He's a Rays guy, but I don't think he made it up till Double A last season. But uh, talk about like reading the dot on like a slider. If it's too obvious, you can see like the red dot.
Hmm.
How much are
Yeah.
you trying to make sure that you're not tipping the pitch with the way it breaks? Like, I feel like part of what makes that sharp slider effective is the fact that it is hard to differentiate from the fastball
Yeah.
early on. What goes into trying to make sure that it is that?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'm kind of a bigger like, feel guy than obviously the game's moving towards a lot of analytics, and obviously it's important, and I know like some of the numbers, but for me, it's honestly just feel. So when I'm at this point in the windup, I'm thinking, all right, I'm well, I don't know which pitch this is, but I'm thinking, all right, I'm throwing fastball all the way down the slope, fastball, 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 till my arm gets here. And as it's coming forward, I think, all right, I'm still thinking fastball, but I've got slider grip and my hands like this. So
Interesting.
I'm throwing it as hard as a fastball just to keep the same
Yeah,
arm speed, arm path. Um, and that for me is when I feel that, that's when I see the hitter reacting as if they thought it was going to be a fastball out of my hand. Um, so yeah, that was that one. But yeah, for me, it's just keep the same arm speed, throw it like a fastball with a slider grip, and over time, I've been throwing it for a while now to where I can see what it does and what it does to hitters when I throw it like that.
totally. And this now is the curveball. If I'm not mistaken, this should be the curveball lefty, and this should be a called
Hmm.
strike. Yeah, like dude,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
pitch that you gotta throw that thing. Oh my god.
yeah,
I'm not gonna tell you to do your job at all, but dude, that's gross. Like,
yeah,
throw that thing a little bit. You said you threw it more as the year
yeah.
went on, but like,
Hmm.
I mean, not only would that work to righties, obviously that's a better pitch to lefties. This
Yeah,
is dumb. Like he shuts that thing
yeah,
down. He shuts
yeah.
that
He
thing
does.
down. What's the thought here? I mean, this is an 0-0 curveball.
Right. Um, well, I've probably been setting that up. So what is it? Third inning.
Yep.
I've probably gone first pitch fastball like the majority of hitters here in this game. So is that guy on first? Um, I feel like I can get ahead, and I trust my curveball to get ahead. Um, and he's probably not expecting it. So that's kind of what I was thinking here. And then as the season went on, I was having success with my fastball at the top of the zone,
Yeah.
and that curveball plays really well off of the opposite fastball at the top of the zone. So if you take it to that middle point where you're at, if he was looking for a fastball top of the zone, that's way out of the zone, right? So that's like you said, he's just shutting it down. He's shutting it down there. Looks like it's going to hit this guy in the second row, and then that's kind of what I was going for there.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is you talk about like tunneling, and that's something that people talk about a lot, but also just when you got to worry about fastball playing up, and then like it's not a 12-6, but it's got a lot of downer to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right here, you talk about the pause right there. I mean, I think his hips and just this lower half here. I don't know who's at the plate. Is that Dillard? Thomas Dillard, I believe is the name. But you could see he just his lower half gives it away. Like he was ready to pull the trigger, I think, on an elevated fastball.
Mm-hmm.
And he realized real quick that it wasn't that. And again, that's where the sequencing, also the pitch clock to the left. That is okay. That's eyewash, right? I mean, like,
I never looked at that thing one time. I don't know why it's there. Right?
Like that's eyewash. I was just thinking about that now. Like I'm looking at that thing over there. Oh, that's a different one. That's a different one. So
that is a different one.
That was this is
it. Oh yeah. Oh.
Different AB?
Yeah, this is Dillard. The last one I don't think was Dillard. Yeah. That one was Dillard. He's good. He's got pop for sure.
So you start him off with a curveball too.
Yeah. That was kind of a scary location against him.
And why do you think that pitch worked? It just was slow enough compared to what he was saying.
Slow enough, yeah. I mean, it probably just had a little more. Look at that. I mean, he's rearing back, and you see a swing, he almost ends up on his back, just because he's swinging so hard at it. I think it just
that thing drops.
Yeah, I think he recognized it. I think it just had a little more depth to it than he thought.
And that kind of goes into the manipulation, right? So like even when he might be sitting that pitch, it's slightly different. Yeah. Is that a big reason why you like to be able to manipulate these pitches a little bit? Like it gives you almost 5-6 looks technically.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's like a guy like that who's got serious ability to change a game like that. You can't throw a get me over. So that one, I'm guessing I was really geared up to throw one of my best curveballs there, and that's kind of what happens. It just has a little more. It has that little more late life, late action to it.
That had the late, and is that just snapping it harder to get that late action? Because I mean that pitch makes all the difference, right? When you have that late break to it, that these guys can sit on it and it still misses under the barrel. Is that just throwing it harder?
Yeah, it's. I would say it's part of that. It's really where I run into trouble is I try to throw it harder back here, like at my leg lift. So when I'm like more under control, you're slow, and then when you're here, that's when you speed up and break it down. So that was when my curveball was the best, when I was under control all the way till foot planted, arm got going, and that's when it had the late life.
And this was another one here, right? Like 0-0, third inning, called strike. So, I mean, this was towards the end of the year. You talk about having more confidence in that curveball. That's got to be a big, big factor for you now moving forward, right? Is that you can go through the lineup, one time through going fastball heavy, then you can go through the lineup another time going a bit more curveball heavy early in the counter, slider heavy another time, like being able to give those multiple looks. I mean, how much did that change things for you in terms of being able to go deeper into starts too?
It definitely did, because I was getting ahead with less effort. When I was throwing a bunch of fastballs, it was like, all right, like he's already seen this a bunch. Like I got to throw the best one here. I got to throw the best one here. And, that kind of wears down on you when you're trying to throw your hardest fastball every pitch. So it was honestly, it was a big help just realizing that and realizing that I had the ability to do that, and just trusting myself with it, because that's the biggest thing, having the confidence in yourself to be able to go and use your stuff whenever you want. So um, yeah, it definitely helped going later into starts and just being a better pitcher overall.
Few more pitches to fly through real quick. So that's one that, like, you talk about having like the other batter's box.
Hmm.
Like, you're okay missing there, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. So you miss with that pitch. Now it's this is the very next pitch. So you set him up with a breaking ball away.
Hmm.
Now
Yeah.
you paint the corner with that heater. Were you aiming for there, or
Oh yeah.
so that's something like you're setting up the breaking ball away.
Hmm.
Now you just freeze him on a heater on the outside
Yeah.
corner. Like, that's
Yeah.
the setup, right?
Right. Exactly. That was going right to where the slider was, and he just spit on the slider.
And it still
And I
serves
was
a
just
purpose. It still serves
right. Yeah.
that slider got you another strike.
Exactly.
So now
Exactly. That's kind of where I was talking about. There we go. That's the knees. That's
that one
kind of
ran
where I was
in.
talking about. Yeah, that one had some run on it. Yeah.
So is that was like a little unintentional run?
Uh, let's see. Where did the catcher set up? Is he setting up out? Yeah, that was some unintentional run
So
right there.
what happens for that to happen? So, like, you're right here at your release.
Yeah. Um,
It's just
a lot of
it's a
times
little
I'll
hard
drop my
to get in
arm.
to zoom in enough here, but is it
Yeah,
just what? Is dropping the arm a little bit there?
a little bit. Coming off it early, so my body's kind of not even going towards the plate. Um, so that was probably part of it why it ran like that, and thankfully it ended up good.
It was a sick
Wasn't more
pitch.
elevated. Yeah, it
It's a
was a
great
dot
pitch.
somehow.
You're not hitting that. You're not hitting that pitch. There's no way. So ends up we skip a few pitches to 3-2, and I labeled
Mm.
that video "Kyle gets squeezed." But I mean, the in Double A, that's usually a strike.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a great spot. But that's
yeah.
where it's a little challenging, right? Like, the pitch a couple pitches before, it ran back. That one kinda
Hmm.
stayed straight.
Right.
So, is that where it can
Yeah.
get a little bit difficult sometimes in terms of like, commanding your stuff when you don't know pitch to pitch if it's gonna run as much? Like, you were locating,
Right.
you just don't know what the pitch is gonna do as
Right.
much.
Yeah. I would say it's tough, and obviously I've had my struggles with command, but it's honestly just about consistency and being consistent in the flight of the ball or the movement of the ball. Um, and that's
Ball
just something that you just keep working on. Like if my, like for mine, I just got to figure out what I need to do for it to be the same every time, so it's easier to command.
Totally. No, I mean, it absolutely makes it. So now we're gonna get to the final pitch, the big developmental pitch right here, the changeup. This is a good one, and something you mentioned on the call up podcast that we just recorded a few minutes ago is that even if you didn't put it in the best spot, it would work because nobody even thought about the changeup. I
Mhm.
feel like this is one of those spots here, right? Like, nobody on
Yeah.
2-1, he's sitting dead red fastball, and you give him a changeup. It's a little elevated,
Mhm.
but he's way out front.
Yeah. That's where I let that one go, and I was like, "Oh no." That's the one where you watch it travel to the plate, and you're just like, "This might be a homer." But that's what I was saying. Like, he's sitting fastball
Yeah, look at
full
his
on.
body.
Yeah. Like, and that was good movement on it. I just started
Yeah,
it way too high and in, but
that's what I was gonna say. How do you get that? Like, what's the big, I guess, distinguishing factor in your release to get that kind of movement? Because people always say like, "Oh yeah, sometimes the changeup's too firm for pitchers, and then
mhm.
sometimes it has that movement." Is it just all in the pronation and release?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't think too much about pronation because then um, I can't control it very well. Like if I'm, and it doesn't really feel natural to go like that, and it's just not comfortable for me. So when I get it, I make sure when I bring it back, I focus on keeping my hand on the inside of the ball. So when I come through, I'm just bringing it down, but my hand's already on the inside. So I'm not going here and then like that. I'm just keeping it here and down like that.
Yeah, you could see you going on the inside of the ball when you take your
Yeah,
arm back here.
yeah, and that's something that I didn't necessarily feel this season, but where I'm getting to now, like in the off season, where I can feel it like every time, going back and staying on the inside, and I can tell. I can honestly tell before I throw it if it's going to be good or bad. So um, it's been a lot more good than bad lately. So hopefully, you just keep doing that and keep doing things right.
And just one more thing to go over with you, just mechanically.
Mhm.
Just kind of take me through your wind up and like what you're thinking about just in terms of trying to, repeat it and throw strikes. Like what is the big thing that
Yeah.
you're looking to achieve there on the mound to make sure that you're pounding the zone a bit more effectively?
hmm So I think for me, it's honestly just all like I said before, just a big like feel guy. Like I have to feel what it feels like. Like I just have to experience it. And for the first like half the season in high A, we were me and like the pitching coaches or whatever, the coordinators, we're just going through things trying to figure out like how to how to be more consistent, getting my fastball down in the zone or commanding it. Where I wasn't even pitching very bad, but I was just tweaking things like for no reason. And my it felt like my mechanics were different every single time I went out for like a month and a half stretch.
Three
Um,
two
to
count
where
to
I
Miranda.
to where I finally just said like screw it, like I'm just gonna feel I'm just gonna try to get in a good rhythm and just try to be an athlete on the mound, like just be athletic on the mound and put myself in the best position um, to throw a strike or throw it where I want when I want. And for me, I couldn't be thinking about I couldn't be thinking about what I'm doing on my backside or like how quick I'm getting down the mound or any of that stuff. Like I just had to go out and do it. And I mean, for me, that's basically it. Just be athletic on the mound. That's always kind of been that's always kind of been how I've done my mechanics. Outside of a couple things with like my arm path, which that is just it's just different for me rather than like separating upper body than from lower body. But it's honestly just I don't try to think about anything on the mound.
Just try to get it done in
Yeah,
practice, get the muscle memory down, and then let it rip on the
right.
mound, right?
Exactly. And obviously you have a couple cues um, that you think about like before you start your motion or whatever. And then obviously in catch play, like throughout the week or in bullpens, you'll be working on some things. But when there's a hitter in the box and he's got a bat and he's trying to hit it over the fence, like I can't be thinking about any of that stuff. Like I just got to go out and compete and just get the job done.
Yeah. So last question. What are the cues here, right? As we get started, you're about to start your
Yeah.
wind up. What are the cues?
All right. So for me, a big cue is to keep the weight over my back leg. And I kind of say that I kind of think in my head, like keep the weight over the rubber. So that prevents me from kind of leaking forward and losing some of that momentum. So when I start my drop step, I try to keep my weight over my right foot, so upper body kind of stays back there. Um, and then I would bring the hands down, and then when I bring my leg up, I bring my hands up at the same time to kind of just feel like a rhythm there. And then from there, I just try to stay back as long as I can and drop down. Arm goes forward, back. Same here. I try not to bring my throwing arm too far back where that used to be a big problem of mine. So I kind of just try to keep it on the same plane. right there, and then it's just go time. As I hit the ground, I'm going right at the dish.
And boom, there it is. But perfect, man. I mean, I'm learning so much from you just going through these, and by the time we do this, hopefully again, we'll have like full ABs, or we can go through like some
Yeah,
of the sequences and stuff like that. This is
mhm.
me haphazardly picking video, so I appreciate you bearing with me, and this is
Absolutely,
a
bro. It was a
ton of
good
fun,
time.
man.
Dude,
Yeah.
it was really fun.
Yeah, dude, thank you. Thank you for you're the second person. I told you this before we recorded. You're the second person to do this, and you're really the first because I told you, like, Griffin the first time, if it went all haywire, too bad. Like, I don't care. It's Griffin. But you're the first like guest
Yeah.
to walk through this with me. So I appreciate you
Yes, sir, man. Yes,
going
sir.
through it. This was a lot of fun, and learned a lot, dude. And I hope some kids out there watching are learning a little bit, and
Mhm.
also realizing that you could be a late bloomer too. Like you said, you were
Absolutely.
throwing mid-80s through high school. So, I
Yeah.
mean, and now upper 90s at times. So,
Mhm.
really excited to see what you can do this year, man. And again, thanks so much for doing this double interview. I know we went a little long today, but
It's all
you
good,
just had
brother.
so much info to give. I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, man.